last but not least, I just wanted to talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson and her Supreme Court nomination. It's funny. It's like, so maybe one, maybe two clubhouses at the most talking about it. Obviously, I think Twitter and maybe Instagram with the photos of her family, that kind of went viral. But I don't really hear a lot of people, at least in the Black legal community, really talk about. I think we've kind of all experienced this when we go in the room, we're the only one, or maybe we're the first at something, and the pressures that you have to face when doing that. As a Black attorney, being Black, we're less than 5% of the legal profession. So it's like, even if she wasn't ever going to do the Supreme Court, what she faced there is what she probably faced at Harvard, probably faced, being a judge in other places, being a lawyer, so at some level, some people said, wow, she just had so much grace. I'm like, because she already know what it is. Like she's
already had to do all of this stuff. This is not new.
And but I will say, and I'll break them up in three categories, just the things that stood out to me in her nomination. The first one was when they really tried to force her to talk about what she wanted, what she defined as a woman. I don't know if you remember, but that was one of the big ones. And again, she's not stupid. She knows that the rules are evolving, right, regarding transgender rights and things like that. So, because some people are like, I just don't understand. Why couldn't she just say, someone biologically born with blah, 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 that's a woman? Why couldn't she just say that? I said, because she's smart, she knows that the rules are evolving. And so she's not going to make some definitive statement in her hearing that will probably be tried to be used against her later. So what are your thoughts on that, with her just like refusing to define it? A lot of people, I'll be honest, a lot of people had a problem with that.
Hold on, give me 1 second. I need to plug in. I'm getting ready to lose a little juice over here.
Plug it in, no problem.
Okay. No, I thought it was incredibly open-minded, and that's what you want in a judge. You want someone who's going to be able to look at issues from so many different angles. A lot of times Supreme Court justices are going to be creating new law and the things that they're deciding on more often than, well, maybe not more often than not, but let's just say quite a bit of the time. And so you want someone who's going to have that open mind to interpret the law, look at the situation, see, does it affect any type of person's constitutional rights? You want to make sure that they're going to be able to look at every single angle, because we as a society and as a community are constantly evolving every single day. And now, when we're talking about LGBTQ communities, when we're talking about people who transition from one sex to the other, yes, while they might not have been biologically born, but what defines them, they're changing themselves, their features, their body, even their genitalia. Even though like a person biologically born male transitioning to a woman, yes, may not have been born with ovaries and fallopian tubes and a cervix, but it's truly changing themselves into everything that embodies a woman, with breasts, with the transition of a vagina and all these other things. That they're making major steps.
It's new waters. It's new waters that we have. That again, maybe 50 years ago, they never thought to have this conversation, but now
it's uncharted waters. And what's happening with that is, how does that affect down the line of so many different things? Like, what, again, the hot topic was the bathrooms, and now, we have a lot of trans men and women who are attending, universities these days and law schools. Like, are they staying in the men's dorm or the women's dorm, and all of these other things that are important issues, because they are people. They are part of our community. They are people who are going to contribute to society. A lot of times, these people in the past, it was so unfortunate. Like, a lot of them unfortunately had to result like years ago, decades ago, to sex work because there was no employment opportunities. But now, you know, trans members of our communities are becoming lawyers and doctors and politicians and are being part of a major influence, you know, in our lives, in our community, and are, you know, who are helping us in so many different ways, you know. And so that part that still needs to be open for interpretation. I don't think you can put it, you know, in a box. You know, you can't necessarily just check a box right now with that, you know. And I like that she kept that open because she's brilliant enough to see that.
Well, speaking of, you know, like you said, wanting a judge to be open and being able to apply the rules, you know, in this day and age, the second thing that they really got on her about was the pedophilia cases. I think they went over that 15 million times. And I'm like, am I missing something? These people had already pled guilty. They had already pled guilty. Wasn't like a thing of guilt or not. Wasn't like she was like, oh, they're not guilty. No, they had already pled guilty. And she literally applied the sentencing guidelines
that was in place. Yes.
So people are like, well, you could have sentenced them to more time in that range. So I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Let's just say it was 5 to 8 years, and maybe some of the cases she would give 5 instead of 8. So the argument is, well, she only gave them 5 when she could have given them 8. What do you think about that?
I'm gonna tell you, at that point they were 100% reaching because she's more qualified than the overwhelming majority of Supreme Court justices that are sitting on that bench right now. Literally, when you think about everything, all the experience that she's had from being a federal district court judge, a federal appellate court judge, a public defender, part of the sentencing commission, you know, all of her experience, Harvard Law Review editor.
Yeah, they did a chart of all her experience, and she had the most out of everybody.
All of these different experiences that she has, and you're hanging your hat on, you know, a difference of 2 to 3 years in sentencing, because that's all you got. That's literally all you have. That's all you have to hang your hat on. And the problem is, it was the legislator's responsibility to change those sentencing guidelines so that way people who were convicted of crimes like that or pled guilty could get longer sentences. So you can't ask a judge to sentence somebody to 20 years when the sentencing guideline says this, because at that point now the judge is breaking the law. They're violating the law. They have to follow the law just like everybody else does. They've got to follow the same law as the lawyers, the same law as the police officers, the same law as the prosecutors, the public defenders, whatever the law states. Same thing when they tell jurors, you got to follow the law. Judge got to follow the law too. And if the sentencing guideline says X, Y, and Z for this particular crime, then that's what they got to follow.
Right. And as long as she picked some years within the range, she was within her right to pick that. And they're literally hanging their whole hat on, well, she could have gone higher in the range.
That's all they have.
She could have, but maybe she was, like you said, considering some other things. I mean, you weren't in the judge in that situation. You didn't have all the facts in that situation. And so it's amazing how the media really spun it as, you know, she's pro pedophiles.
Of course. But that's all they can do, and that's what they're gonna do. You know, depending on which media outlet, we know some are obviously more biased towards certain parties than others, and that's fine if that's the stance that they want to take. But it's not like this woman gave, you know, somebody where in the state of Texas, murder is like 5 to like 30 years, right? Where this person committed murder, maybe multiple murders, and then you gave them 5 years when they could have got 30. We're talking about a difference of 5 to 8 years here, you know, and I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. But then again, you know, sometimes these news media outlets, they're very much hypocrites in their own words. A lot of times they want to talk about how professional athletes need to shut up and dribble basketballs, but then they allow quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Drew Brees to give their political opinions on things. So, I mean, when it comes to, you know, certain things that are said, you just take it with a grain of salt. You know, at the end of the day,
I think she did and like you said, I think she did that. I think she did her best to maintain. I mean, she has some moments where, you know, it was on her face, like, okay, how many times? And after a while, she said, as I have already previously responded. I mean, after a while, she kept cutting and pasting that answer, because it just seemed like they weren't going to let it go. And I think again, Blacks in this profession, we're talked down to. The last group of statements that kind of came out of the hearing in terms of being highlighted were when they wanted to go on the whole rant about critical race theory or whatever, and even her religion. Again, it's like, so you literally spent 5 minutes talking about what her religion. First of all, you're not even really allowed. You're not even supposed to be talking.
You're
about
not supposed to do that, yeah.
Right. But he did that. And then you finally realize why he did it. He did it because he felt like, I believe Justice Brenner or one of the other justices had been treated unfairly, I think, for being his religion, whether it be Catholicism or what. He felt like one of the other justices, when he was going through his confirmation hearing, was treated unfairly. So he decided to use Ketanji's confirmation to talk about how another judge had been treated up. I thought that was absolutely insane, because you got to the end of his rant and you realized it wasn't even really about her religion. It was just about how he felt like somebody else got a hard time. And then the other thing that I noticed they talked about was that book that is sold out now. I think what is his name? Is it Ted Cruz?
Yeah.
Who served on the law review with her. He was at Harvard with her at the same time. I think he's jealous that she's being nominated. I'll be honest. I think there was some jealousy. He started off really nice, but you could tell he didn't care for her. He literally tried to use a children's book teaching children not to be racist as a tool to say, do you think babies are racist? That's what he asked him. Do you think babies are racist? I mean,
I know one of the questions as I was watching, they were trying to use, they asked her how many times did she go to church, or they were trying to make a big point of that. And I really liked her answer, because unfortunately, a lot of times people try to use religion as their opinion or basis for creating laws. I mean, obviously abortion is now a hot topic, especially what just happened in Texas recently with the new abortion law that they just passed. And a lot of that could be centered around your religious beliefs. And, I think how often a person goes to church has no effect should not have any effect on how they decide law. We used to always say, one of the first things we learned about even before law school, there should always be a separation between church and state. And unfortunately, that does not happen much anymore, because a lot of people's religious beliefs are always these days are getting intertwined in their political and legal agendas. And that should not be the case. It shouldn't be about what your religious beliefs are, and that should not be a part of your lawmaking decision. And I thought she did a phenomenal job of answering, because she's trying to show the world, like, regardless of how many times I go to church, I'm still going to be very much open-minded. I'm still going to very much hear the law and the arguments that are presented and make a decision based on my bipartisan beliefs, and not allow my own personal beliefs to creep in. And I thought she did a phenomenal job by answering that question.
And the good news is they don't need any Republican votes to really push this through. As long as all the Democrats vote, Kamala Harris would be the tie-breaking the 51. So, and now they said they actually have one Republican now that's willing to say that she would vote yes for her. So, yeah, I mean, with all of that song and dance that they did with the hearing, I think at some level she also knew that it didn't matter, that she was going to get confirmed, that this was just something she had to just go through, because this is a process. But they don't even need all their votes. So
those senators who are opposed to her, they have to make a song and dance for their constituents, because they have to at least show that they tried.
That they tried to fight back.
That they tried to fight back. So that's a dog. To me, that's a dog and pony show for their own constituents. I mean, they probably know what's inevitable, but they just got to do something to make sure that they remain in their seat when it comes time for midterms.
This is true. And something that our audience may not know, Ketanji's father is a lawyer. Her brother is a lawyer. So it's a family affair. I love that there's so much like Black excellence with their family. And I just want to thank you again for coming on and just giving, I say 2 cents, but to me it's worth more than 2 cents. Because every time I talk to you, I'm like, think about it that way. I'm like, this is why you're here. Give another perspective or hot topic.
I always enjoy coming on here and fleshing out a lot of these topics and talking about not just the legal issue, but just from a societal standpoint, and just trying to stay on top of the things that we want to do as a community. So I always appreciate it.
To follow stories like this, you can continue to follow us on our social media handles at AskCarterLaw or on our website, www.AskCarterLaw.com.